Welcome into a special April Fool's edition of Sport Ball. I'm your boy Sam. With me, as always, are these two pillars of the modern humanity, Seth and Kyle. April
Is
Fools,
that an April
none of
Fool's
that. I
joke?
didn't mean anything I said.
So this isn't really a special edition of Sport Ball?
No, which our listeners should expect by now.
Yeah.
We're recording this on Thursday, April 1st, as I
Alluded to.
thank you.
You're welcome.
And it's going to be a special episode, I think, because the trade
Opening
deadline.
day. Oh,
No, we would never talk about baseball on this podcast. The trade deadline has come and passed in the NBA, as has the buyout market. And the landscape, dare I say, has been shifted like a tectonic plate.
And by
Has it
that
really,
he
though?
means very, very slowly, subtle changes that are practically imperceptible.
So yeah, that's a pretty good analogy then. So this will be our NBA trade deadline reaction extravaganza 2021. Big summer blowout. The first one we have to talk about, the first one we must discuss, the first trade was none other than our own Chicago Bulls of the greater Chicagoland area, making a splash, really the first trade of the deadline. We got Nikola Vucevic, and in return, the Magic got Wendell Carter Jr., our center prospect who never plays and is not that good, and two lightly protected, top four protected first round picks this year and in 2023. And then we threw in Otto Porter Jr., they threw in Al-Farouq Aminu, salary filler. We both said things that we regret. So
What were the protections on those?
top four. So
essentially unprotected.
yeah. So the biggest questions for this trade, I think, will be: do we like this for Chicago, the direction they're going with this trade? And do we think Orlando got enough for all-star Nikola Vucevic? Kyle, why don't you tee us off and tell me how you like this for the Bulls?
We're a few games in since the trade happened. I believe 4, maybe 5. I think 4. We are 0
Maybe
for
5,
4.
though. Yeah, we haven't won a game since.
Needless to say, the basketball has looked tremendous.
I mean, Levine's been injured too, though.
Yeah, Levine hasn't played every game. But I'm a fan, right? We've been talking about how we thought Vooch, not even thought, how Vooch was an all-star. What is he? Almost a perennial all-star at the center position.
Almost. He's made one all-star game, hasn't he?
Has he made back-to-back?
I think he was last year too, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't say if that's perennial, but yeah.
Well, for the last 2 years it is.
Yeah, since the last 2 years, he's a perennial all-star. But, I mean, Seth has been clamoring for the Celtics to get him, so the fact that Chicago went out and got him in spite of him really just makes the trade that much better.
That's the main reason you like it.
Exactly, trading for a center. It's against my core values typically, but it's a nice contract to have. It's a declining contract on, as we've said, a 2-time back-to-back all-star. What is it, 24 this year, 22 million next year, and 20 the year after. So I think the organization, after originally thinking Levine could be a trade piece, after kind of what he's shown improvements-wise this year, they really seem to be going all in on kind of building around him. So what did they do? They went out and got one of the best statistical pick and roll players in the NBA, right, to pair with him, which is one of the worst things that we were at. I think we were like 24th or 25th in the league in pick and roll scoring, or roll man pick and roll scoring. Vooch, I think, is top 5 roll scorer in the NBA. So you get to pair finally, a good big man that knows how to score out of the pick and roll with Zach LaVine, who could thrive out of the pick and roll. So our prospects are looking good. We're looking good. Patrick Williams is really looking good too. I feel like that pairing kind of, I don't know why, I'm much more comfortable with him out there next to Vooch than I have been all season with him next to Wendell Carter Jr.
Yeah, it does make more sense, I feel like. And I feel like usually I don't even like trades like this, where I'm like, okay, we're not going to be a championship contender. We're not tanking. We're going for the middle of the playoffs. But I mean, there's only so long you can rebuild, right? And we haven't been in the playoffs in so long. And, I think Levine and Vucevic and Williams is something. It feels like
That's
a
what
direction.
I think in the next 12 months, they might be considered a big three.
I already know that sentence is going to haunt us in the near future.
I think I'm joking, but
12 months.
when the Bulls are top 4 next year in the East, on the backs of those three,
On the backs of Neemias Queta, we will draft in the draft. Yeah,
Well, if
I
you
was thinking
draft
about.
Neemias,
I was thinking
Big
about.
Four.
Yeah, with Neemias, it's the big four. I was thinking about I've seen Patrick Williams compared to a young Kawhi. I think they've even called him. The announcers have called him not the claw, but what do they call him? The paw.
the paw, yeah.
Yeah,
That's cute.
I think he's kind of like Jaylen Brown too, where like he has this raw athleticism, great defender, but not very fluid on the offensive end yet. But he's getting there, and he just has a great mid-range floater game. And if he can just bring that out to the 3-point line, I think he's going to complement Levine and Vucevic perfectly. So I like it a good amount for Chicago, especially since that contract isn't too onerous, like you were saying, Kyle. The question on the flip side, Seth, is do you think that Orlando got enough for Vucevic? Do you think they cashed out at the right time?
Yeah, I think they did. I mean, Vooch he's at his peak right now. He's in his prime, and from what I heard, Orlando was kind of thinking, okay, we're going to keep him. He's our cornerstone player unless we get an offer that we can't refuse, and that's what they got from Chicago. So I think they're happy and just diving into a blow it up kind of rebuild after they were already rebuilding but hadn't gotten anywhere. So I think it works out for them, and yeah, I mean, I like it for the Bulls as well. Like y'all kind of said, it's at least gives the potential that the Bulls can be relevant soon and have some enjoyable games for the fans, even if it's not going to be, championship contenders right away. It's something.
Yeah, and to your point about Orlando, we should talk about how we feel about that strategy, because they did trade Vooch, they traded Aaron Gordon and Evan Fournier, which we'll get to later. So they have peeled the curtain back. They're blowing it up. They're going full rebuild, and I think it's time. I think it was time, right? I mean, this core has won 2 playoff games. Gordon never turned into what they thought he would, and now they're going to rebuild around Fultz and Isaac and my boy Chumo Koki, who I will probably be forced to keep in our dynasty league because he's just so good. So I'm liking their.
Why do I feel like Aaron Gordon kind of is going to end up with the same exact career trajectory as Blake Griffin?
Well, he was never nearly as good as Blake Griffin.
Wasn't Blake Griffin like rookie of the year?
I guess I'm just thinking of it in terms of like outrageously athletic, crazy big plays, gets a couple injuries, gets traded. I mean, he's looked great so far for Denver, which we'll get to, but at some point it's just like he's just going to be a guy on the floor.
Well, let's go into that trade now, because the Denver Nuggets cashed in on Aaron Gordon, and they also got Gary Clark, which
Junior.
we should mention. We should mention leads us into the greatest fact of the trade deadline, that every single player in the NBA named Gary got traded. Speaking of, in return, the Magic got Gary Harris, RJ Hampton, a nice young prospect, and a protected 2025 first from the Nuggets. So I feel like this wasn't as great of a return for them, for Gordon. But like you said, Kyle, I think at this point, I don't think anyone will disagree with me when I say he just kind of is who he is, right? When he came into the Magic, it was kind of like he kind of wanted to be that facilitator, that LeBron, that Luka, that face of the franchise kind of guy. I think we all realize at this point that's not his destiny basketball wise, right? His destiny is pretty much what he's going to be in the Nuggets, right? you're the fourth, fifth option on offense, play elite defense on whoever the good wing is on the other team, and you you hit open shots. And so I think he's going to be a good fit for them. Kyle, do you think this really legitimately improves the Nuggets' chances to make the finals this year?
I'd say so. Yeah. Because, I mean, like you mentioned, right, with the Magic, he was never like a tertiary option, really even like a secondary option. He was essentially their go-to guy for a while. And that's just not the player he's cut out to be. When you get to be part of a team where you don't need to be the sole guy on offense, you just have to, hit your cuts, catch the ball, dunk it, or shoot a wide open three. It makes the game much easier. You get to focus your efforts a lot more on the defensive end, right? Which is another reason that they went out and got him. Right. When he's on the floor with the other starting four, it really allows them to, like you said, put Gordon on the best, wing player on the other team, and essentially hide Michael Porter Jr. on whoever on the other team doesn't do much, which is exactly what they need. We know Michael Porter Jr. is not great on the defensive end. So, but I feel like it's almost like the perfect fit, right? To be in that role for Aaron Gordon, especially at this point in his career. I think he's going to be a huge, I mean, we've seen it. They've only played 2 or 3 games, but they've looked incredible with that new starting 5 so far on the floor. So I'm excited. We don't know what's going to happen with the Lakers too, right? Going down the season with LeBron out, with AD out. If things break the wrong way, they could be looking at like a play-in game, and then you have to face, the Clippers or the Jazz most likely in the first round, and there's no guarantee that they make to the second round. So I obviously love Denver to make it again to the finals. And I was saying this the other day, what happens when it's Denver and Brooklyn in the finals? Essentially my 2 favorite teams, one from each league, from each West and the East. Yeah, conference. There you go. I almost said division. I'm all into baseball already. So
that's gonna be tough for you.
I don't know what I'm gonna do because I know it's gonna happen.
You're gonna have to put yourself in a hyperbaric chamber and come out when the series is over.
I'll come out 3 years later and ask which of those 2 teams won 3 championships in a row.
Seth, do you like this for the Nuggets too? They're really replacing that Jeremy Grant role that they lost in the offseason, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit ironic since they essentially had a player perfect for that role already, but they tried to keep him and he wanted to go to Detroit. So I think this is a good replacement for them. And a lot of people have been talking about how good Aaron Gordon is at cutting, and who better to have than Nikola Jokic to find him on those cuts. So I think it really launches Denver into that top tier of title contenders in the West. They had really picked it up starting even before the trade deadline. And so now they're sitting at 29-18 in 5th place in the West, and Lakers are still 1 above them. So we expect them to fall at least a few spots. So looking like they'll have at least home court advantage in the first round. And I think they're as well positioned as anybody to make it all the way.
Yeah, I think that with the injuries to LeBron and Davis, that really the door creaked open, right, in the West. And so they're able to take advantage of that now. On the flip side for Orlando, not as good return, but to be expected when you're selling Gordon, not at his peak, I would say. And people kind of knew he was available, so that brought the price down. So I think they did fine. Orlando did. I don't think they're going to get much more for him. And now, if you're Orlando, your hopes rest in the lottery odds, right? And you have not been lucky there in years past, which is part of the reason you're having to tear it down, right? I mean, they were 1 pick after Joel Embiid, 1 pick after Trae Young. They whiffed on Mo Bamba. They could have had Wendell Carter Jr. instead of Mo Bamba in the first place.
Back-to-back picks.
Yeah. So
The whole
let's just
direction
hope
of
they,
the Magic franchise changed, though, if they do land even a top
Yeah.
3 pick. You
In
land a
this
Cade
draft.
Cunningham, you land a Jalen Suggs. I guess even if, I don't know where he fits in, but then you just build around him, Evan Mobley, right? Any of those 3, could be, completely change really what your short-term plans are as an organization.
picture this, all right? Markelle Fultz, Cade Cunningham, my boy, Chuma, Jonathan Isaac, Wendell Carter. The rebuild stops there.
1 year in.
All right, let's hit a couple more trades here because eventually we do have to get to Celtics so he can tell us how he loves the foot disease of Fournier. Victor Oladipo first, finally made to Miami after years of circling it.
Years of being.
Yeah. So he made it out of Houston, and the return, not great, guys. So Miami got Victor, and they gave up Kelly Olynyk, Walmart Thor himself, Avery Bradley, and a 2022 first-round swap rights, which, as I understand it, basically allows them to swap their Nets pick with a Heat pick if they want. So you're looking at probably 2 end of the round picks either way. So not a great return for Houston. I think we've lamented often on this podcast, so I don't necessarily think we have to hammer it, but didn't get a lot for James Harden when it comes down to it. And they could have had Karis LeVert instead or Ben Simmons, which I think we all agree that we would have preferred. So, Victor Oladipo is an expiring contract. No one knows if they can re-sign him. He hasn't looked great, so did not get much in return for him. So I want to focus on the Miami side here. Do you think this kind of vaults them into, we know the top 3 in the East, right? We know the Nets, the Bucks, and the Sixers, but, could you wake up come Eastern Conference Finals times and not be surprised to find the Heat there, Seth?
To not be surprised to find the Heat there? Yeah, I could wake up in that state of mind.
After the hyperbaric chamber that you and Kyle shared.
Yeah. I mean, the Heat have been one of those teams that has had some bad luck with COVID and other injuries. And so I feel like we've kind of been expecting them to turn it around all season. So they haven't fully fulfilled that expectation, I would say. But I just feel like considering what they did in the bubble last year, we can't count them out in the playoffs at any point. I don't know. It's kind of like the opposite of the Bucks, where the Bucks keep showing us every regular season that they're one of the best teams in the league, and then in the playoffs they crumble. So it's like the Heat are kind of the opposite for me right now.
Yeah. And, you give up Kelly Olynyk for a chance at Victor Oladipo to be even 80% of his all-star self. You do that 100% of the time, right?
You have to. That's exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth. That's exactly what I was going to say.
He doesn't even necessarily have to be his all-star self. Now he's looking at, Jimmy and Bam are the first options on that offense. He can fit right in there as the 3rd, 4th option, which I think he's perfectly suited for. So
I think really what a deep run for Miami actually revolves around is the health and the play of Goran Dragic, right?
Mm-hmm.
If Goran's coming off the bench the way and performing the way he was in the bubble and in the playoffs last year before he got hurt, adding Victor Oladipo to that too, that's a dangerous team.
Yeah.
Which is, it's exactly what they traded Victor for, right? Was to have a shot at it this year, because you don't know if he's going to come back. He's going to be back next year, but like you said, to have the opportunity to give up just Kelly Olynyk and essentially nothing else for the most part for a chance at that even 75, 80% of an all-star Victor Oladipo, do it 100 times out of 100 times.
It's going to be an absolute bloodbath even in the second round of these playoffs. You're going to have, one of those 3, the Nets, the Bucks, and the Sixers are going to play each other before the conference finals. And then you have the Heat in there too, right? And dare I say the Celtics. Yeah.
Thank you.
After they win their play-in against the Bulls. But I do want to hit one more time on the Rockets. You look around at what they got, right? I mean, they don't have any picks that are juicy even, you know?
Atrocious.
Yeah. So
An embarrassment.
I had to lambast them one more time.
They
before
destroyed their franchise.
Yeah. Before we get to Seth's precious Celtics, one more thing I wanted to hit on is Rondo to the Clippers. One of those kind of on the fringes move that might actually make a difference in the playoffs. Rondo traded to the Hawks for Lou Williams in 2 seconds. So, okay, Lou for the Hawks, fine. Probably helps them make a playoff push. The real question in my mind is, does adding Rondo impact the Clippers' chances to get to the finals? What do you guys think?
Maybe.
Can't hurt, right?
So I think a lot of people in the wake of this trade have been talking about how Lou Williams has been awful in the playoffs, really his whole career. And so I think on its face, you would say at this point in their careers, like Lou Williams is a much better player than Rajon, and he's a perennial 6-man of the year candidate. So why would they trade him away? But clearly they're just looking for playoff performance. And I think more than that, a change in the locker room, because there's been something going on at the chemistry there the last 2 years, and they needed to make some kind of change. I'm not entirely convinced that just adding Rondo to the mix is going to do that. With Kawhi and Paul George being the kind of soft-spoken leaders that they are, and with Paul George's own documented playoff struggles, I don't know, it doesn't give me a lot of confidence in them after what we saw last year. But I could also see it being like, yeah, they choked last year. They needed to get 1 year with that group under their belt. They've made some changes now, and who's to say they couldn't, make it to the finals?
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a wishy-washy answer, but I guess I just still have them in that group.
Yeah.
I feel like both conferences this year, at this point in the season at least, there's like a top 4.
Yeah.
That are all, you could see really any of them making it. Maybe in the East, you could say like Brooklyn is in a tier of their own, but
even if you say that, like, I would like to see KD come back healthy, and similarly with the Lakers and LeBron and AD, right? But yeah, I think I'm pretty bullish on this for them, just because it was just kind of an easy thing to do. They weren't going to be able to get in the Lowry sweepstakes with what they had. They weren't even really able to get Rubio, which was rumored as well. So, to give up to give up playoff Lou for playoff Rondo is quite the trade-off. And
sure.
I think he fits what they need more, just someone to facilitate, and they're not getting any shots at the rim. I think he can help with that. And you know what? He was the Lakers' third best player last year in the playoffs, and they won the title. So I don't know if that's going to happen again, but I do think
speaks to the depth of the Lakers, though.
Yeah. But I do think he'll make a positive contribution come playoff time.
Isn't at this point, outside of the playoff experience, the Terrence Mann just Rajon Rondo reincarnated? I don't know how much Terrence Mann you guys have watched, but I've been a fan since he got in the league last year.
Big Terrence Mann fan,
I was big on him and Kabengele. R.I.P. Kabengele's soul.
Mafiando.
They're not going to make it there. Yeah. Mafiando, Kabengele. He hasn't even played for the Kings yet. I've been pissed.
He's not very good. That's probably why.
I can't wait until he makes an All-NBA team in 4 years. I cannot wait.
If Mafiando Kabengele makes an All-NBA team, I'll get his face tattooed on my ass.
Deal. I'll do it too.
You heard it here first. But yeah, I think Mann should get playoff minutes too. I think he's just another piece, right, that they needed, and they didn't need Lou really when come playoff time. So, but like Seth said, still in the same range that I had them in before.
Luke Kennard has found his shot recently too, so that I think that kind of alleviated the need for any type of Lou Williams off the bench scoring. Once the Clippers are fully healthy again, you'll have Kennard coming off the bench and giving you more production than what Lou's been able to give you as of late anyway. So
I texted Sam the other day because I was watching a basketball game and the home announcers were getting a little wild. And one of them said,
as they like to do.
Yeah, one of them said, "He is a supernova."
In regards to Luke Kennard.
Like, I could give you 100 guesses on who that player was that he's referencing, and you wouldn't get it. And it was Luke Kennard.
Fucking Luke Kennard, dude. I want good things for him, though. He's a fellow receding hairline man, so only good things for him. Finally, Seth, we must, I suppose, touch on your beloved Celtics adding Evan Fournier for 2 second-round picks.
Fournier gangrene, yeah.
So, I mean, we can get this out of the way first. Pretty bad return for the Magic, but they didn't. I mean, they just did it a year. They did a year too late. Yeah. Seth, how do you like it for the Celtics? How are you enjoying his 2 for 20 start so far?
Yeah. So far, he's played 2 games for us. He's shooting 19% from the field and 0% from 3. So anytime you can add a player who's going to give you that, I think you got to do it for 2 first-round picks. He's also only the 4th player in the shot clock era to shoot 10 shots and not make any of them, or at least 10.
What? Wow, I would think there'd be more people in that list.
Let me double check that I'm not saying
no, you're right.
That wrong. But
I want the list of all of them.
Same stat.
And I want one of them to be Josh Smith.
Kyle will get us a list.
All right,
no, but I mean, obviously it's 2 games. He's adjusting to his new circumstances. He's maybe pushing a little too hard, trying to let it in. Hasn't really hit his stride. Assuming at the level that he's been playing for the Magic, I think it's up for else. And similar to what you're talking about with Rondo, the Lakers, it's like less to do. Fournier, excuse me. It's less Fournier and more to do who he's replaced. So any competent player and playmaker flip. It's usually Teague, Williams, Green, Aaron Nesmith. Any of those players is going to be a massive step up. So I think it'll be good for them. Would have been nice. Would have been nice to get Gordon Hayward instead. Who we already had. Not get, obviously we weren't going to get him, but it would have been nice to just have him instead of the Fournier minutes. But
yeah. I mean, it's really that's what I was saying. I wanted Harrison instead of a center. Like, just give me someone other than Javonte Green, Semi Ojeleye, Aaron Nesmith.
Yeah,
please. So I think in the long term, it'll be good for you guys to make that push out of the play-in at least.
But the big acquisition they got that no one's even mentioned, Luke Cornett.
MVP of the team the last 2 games. He has been like
really what the Celtics need, though. They just need Fournier to essentially become Jordan Clarkson for them, right?
Yeah.
6-man off the bench. Only worry about scoring for the most part and let Tatum or Brown, whoever he's playing with, kind of be the distributor.
Yeah, we're lucky Clarkson's still alive, it sounds like, even because
those damn Jazz, birds, dude.
The Jazz playing nearly got down due to birds, yeah. And the engine started on fire or something. So Jordan Clarkson said there were 30 seconds there when everyone was like, well, this is it.
Yeah. Laugh, but you know how scary that must have been?
Dude, that would have been terrifying.
And 20 other people on a huge plane, and you just see one of the engines burning.
Dude, oh my God, I can't imagine. But luckily they're all safe, so. But yeah, I think that was a good addition for you guys, given what was available. The one player that didn't move at the deadline, we should mention quick, is Kyle Big Butt Lowry, who stayed put in Toronto despite basically everyone assuming he was gone at the deadline. This is the biggest fake I can remember in trade deadline in so many years. He literally did the peace sign on his way out of his last game, or what he thought was his last game, and Drake FaceTimed him during his press conference to offer his best wishes, and yet he stayed on the team. So
I think the only reason he wasn't traded was Taylor Horton Tucker too.
yeah, so we should go. I think one of the big reasons was the contract was hard to trade, $30 million. You had to get up to that. It seems like the Sixers, Heat, and Lakers were all on the table. Seems like it fell apart for the Heat because I'm guessing
the table fell apart from all
Yeah.
those teams being on it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure exactly why it fell apart from the Heat. They probably just wanted Oladipo much cheaper if they had to give up Duncan Robinson or someone. For the Sixers, it seemed like they didn't want to give up Maxey, Thybulle, and a first-round pick. The Lakers, it seemed like they didn't want to give up Schroeder, Taylor Horton Tucker, and KCP.
The report was that they wouldn't put Taylor Horton Tucker in that deal.
Right.
Which is an outrageous thing to not give an unestablished player that's only played well in the preseason, say he's off limits for Kyle Lowry.
Yeah, I would have done it. Although I would have been more squeamish about giving up Schroeder, like I was telling you guys yesterday, because Schroeder, they want to re-sign in the offseason, I think. And it's like I was saying to you guys, it's rare to get a point guard like in his prime when you're a team with two superstars like that with no cap space. So
I'm so glad you guys are finally talking about Dennis Schroeder the same way I've been talking about Dennis Schroeder since he entered the league.
Well, I'm never going to be talking about him the same way you're talking about him. You had drafted him in a draft of basically the top 50 players of all time. We had 5 people drafting teams of 10. And you drafted Dennis Schroeder.
Stick to my guns. It was the right pick.
Of course.
And he's proven it now.
But yeah, so I think I would have done that deal anyway if I had the Lakers. Seth, you agree with that?
Yeah, I would have done it. I mean, I think there's some consideration to protecting the future. And you don't know if Kyle's going to resign there, or if they'd be able to offer him the money that he would want. But it's also like, you never know what's going to happen in the future. And this is 1 year that you don't want to waste. And I think it would be really hard for any team to beat a healthy Lowry, LeBron, and Davis team. So I would have done it. I mean, I just think the upgrade is enough where you go for it for this year. But at the same time, like, they could still win it without him. So maybe it won't matter.
Yeah. It's an interesting line they're trying to walk between keeping the future and contending for championships now.
Yeah.
We got to hit buyouts real quick. There's been a lot of kerfuffle around the league about these buyouts and a lot of mindless drivel being argued from both sides. Let me just tell you right now what happens, okay? So LaMarcus and Blake went to the net. Blake Griffin went to the Nets. Andre Drummond went to the Lakers. Okay, is this really that much of a competitive advantage for the Lakers and the Nets? I mean, Blake and LaMarcus are washed, right? The only way they could be positive contributors is as a fifth option or even eighth man off the bench, right? And that's what they will be with these teams. Whereas with their teams before, the teams didn't even want them because they're these washed players and they're trying to get young. Same with Andre Drummond, right? So the player didn't want to be in the old team. The team didn't want him there. And now and everyone's acting like there's just so much talk around these buyouts that is so dumb to me. It's like everyone's like, wow, call it Blake and LaMarcus on the Nets. It's like, okay, you obviously don't understand what you're talking about. Like, sure, they'll contribute, but it's not like game over because you have 2 former All-Stars that are now don't have one knee between their 4 that they're supposed to have. So I don't know. Like,
it's just like DeMarcus Cousins a couple of years ago for the Warriors.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to do anything.
No. I mean, I'm sure, like, in the playoffs, they'll play minutes in the playoffs. Blake and LaMarcus, depending on matchups, but it's not like it swings the tide or anything. I don't know. I feel like we all understand what's going on, and we have pointless arguments about these buyouts.
I mean, in terms of the Nets, the 2 players they got, I think it's an upgrade to their front court depth, which is something they really didn't have, right?
For sure.
You were essentially relying on either Andre Drummond or not Andre Drummond.
Nick Claxton.
I was gonna say Nick Claxton,
DeAndre
but
Jordan.
he's worth it. DeAndre Jordan. I was gonna say the guy that almost went to the Mavericks and got locked in a house for a couple days and then just got sent back.
Well, that could be anyone. Yeah, I you know what I do really hope though is LaMarcus doesn't take too many wins away from Claxton because I'm starting to like him.
Claxton's fun. He's explosive. He's got some athleticism, but I mean, it really doesn't matter, I guess, essentially, really, who else is on the court, right? When you have Kevin Durant, Kyrie, James Harden, and not talked about enough still, Joe Harris.
Yeah. And it's like
Really,
now
who cares who the fifth player is?
Right. And they can cycle through anyone who fits the matchup they're playing. So,
yeah.
What about Drummond on the Lakers? Do you guys think he'll be closing? Probably not. Probably AD at the 5 will be closing, but I think he's going to get especially a lot of regular season minutes as those guys are both injured, right?
Yeah,
that's true. I mean, well, I guess it depends when he comes back. I think sprained his big toe, his first game with the team. So
you don't need that though, right?
He's only going to be out like 2 games, I think they said. I mean, he's a walking Barbara Walters for the most part, right?
He really is.
He leads the league in Barbara Walter games since he's been in by like almost 20 something games, I want to say.
Yeah, I think he will play some meaningful playoff minutes for them. I think it might be tough to have him in at the end because it's free throws, kind of like they didn't have Dwight in at the end really in most games. But I think he's going to help them. They're trying not to basically lose every game when LeBron and AD are out, you know, like you're talking about
That's
them
the key.
Sliding to the play. And like, this team is terrible without those two. So I think that'll help in that regard, at least playoff positioning. Any more thoughts on the buyouts?
It's time. It's the Nets' time. We know that though.
So I guess this is a good time to take stock. Gun to your head. Who do you see in the finals?
Nets, hands down. And I'm gonna say Denver.
So you will be in a hyperbaric chamber. That is what you're telling me.
Yeah, I ordered it already on Amazon. I know I've been saying all year long how we're gonna have 2 more finals with the Lakers. But that was not what that was before the injuries happened.
I always knew you'd hop off the train, even after you came crawling back to me saying, "Can I rejoin the Lakers bandwagon?"
If
I said no.
If AD and LeBron both didn't get injured, I would still say the Lakers would be in the finals. But we don't know exactly when LeBron's going to be back. We don't know where they're going to be, who they're going to have, matched up with. So give me Big Honey all day, every day.
I would say, if you give me the caveat that LeBron and AD are healthy come playoff time and they have not slipped past 6, I will still take the Lakers first. And I will begrudgingly also agree that I would be actually a little surprised if the Nets don't make the finals at this point. And I hate saying that out loud, but I did. Seth, do you agree?
Yeah, I've been thinking about who I'm going to pick for our annual playoff pool, and I think I'm going to go with the reverse strategy of what I had last year and try to reverse jinx some teams. So I'll just pick the Lakers and the Nets every round, and then be happy either way.
So to be clear, you don't do any of these picks based on any sort of knowledge or strategy. It's just
all strategy.
Yeah.
For the matchups where I don't have an exceeding amount of bias that's seeping into them, then I try to think about rational facts.
So what is that, like 2 matchups per year?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So I mean, the Nets look like definitely the best team in the East. That's undeniable at this point. I do wonder if we give, like, is Kevin Durant more injury prone than we kind of talk about? Like, I feel like Anthony Davis has this kind of label of like not super reliable, but I think KD is.
been similar. KD had one severe injury that took over a year to come back from, right? And then Now I
he
don't
had
know.
other stuff before that too, though. Like never missed playoff time, I don't think, but like during the year, different.
I think
things
another
here and
thing
there.
too, another reason I think that we really haven't seen Durant come back yet from his current injury is just the fact that they don't need him. They don't need to rush him back. So
Right.
Yeah.
why do it? Let him rest as much as humanly possible.
Yeah,
And
I
then
think if they
let him
didn't
come
have
back with enough time to kind of get back to that game strength come playoff
Yeah.
time, let him be fully healthy.
Yeah, I think if they didn't have Harden and Kyrie and he wasn't coming off an Achilles, I think that this would have been like a 2-3 week injury. But he's somewhere between like Harden, LeBron when they never get injured, and AD getting injured. I feel like, he's had his injuries. But yeah, I think we're hurtling towards the Nets Lakers championship if everyone is not injured. So Seth, look forward to that. Quickly before we go out, I want to talk about March Madness and just refresh our listeners of what's going on. It's been very enjoyable. Surprises so far, best parts of the tournament for you guys. What are your thoughts so far? I mean, our boy Nemius did let us down in the first round, so that was disappointing. But our other boys of Ohio did win, Kyle, so that was good.
Yeah, that was great, especially after loyal listener Matt flat out said there's no chance they win.
So far, Matt has said there's no chance that three things happen: that they win, that Michigan wins, and that what was the other one? I don't know, but he's been wrong all three times. So if Matt says there's no way something's going to happen, then it's going to happen.
Yeah, it was. So that was great watching our boys, the Bobcats of Ohio, win that first round game. Really had high hopes for the second game too. Just couldn't close it out.
Oral Roberts, really exciting. I must say, be said.
Oral Roberts, obviously, right? Oof. They could have been in the Elite Eight too. Really, they went scoreless at the end of the Sweet 16 game for maybe like 4 minutes. And at the end, though, really couldn't have asked for a better shot for the most part.
Got a great look.
You have the leading scorer in college in the country get essentially what was a wide open three for the most part. I don't know what they had them doubled too. I don't know if I think they might've ran into each other. Yeah. And if you have that shot, I'd say out of 10 times, Ace Smith is hitting that 7 out of 10 times. And that
Can someone explain to me why his name is spelled ABMAS and then it's just an S instead of a B when you pronounce it?
Couldn't tell you.
Seth, your boys, Syracuse, made it farther than my Fighting Illini, and they made it all the way to the Sweet 16. How'd you feel about that? Were you excited?
I was excited, and then you told me you weren't even cheering for them after I spent many a text cajoling you and caring for you after consoling. That's the word. After the Illini lost. Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, like I said in the last podcast we did, it's like zone defense is hard for a lot of teams to adjust to. Syracuse does this a lot where they look mediocre during the season and then make a March Madness run. So they did. Obviously came up short, but played pretty well.
Got destroyed by my Houston boys.
Couldn't make threes against Houston in that game. Yeah. So yeah, I feel satisfied for sure.
I do not. Thanks for asking. Final four predictions. Who do you think is going to win? I'm going Gonzaga because they just seem like they're like a G League level team. I don't even know. I was watching them play. I was watching them play USC this weekend, and it was like watching two different sports. Like they're just so much better than them. So I don't know. I don't see anyone beating them. But I mean, it's March. Anything can happen. But they seem pretty unbeatable.
Which two sports did it look like you were watching?
One looked like handball, and the other one looked like pickleball. Correct.
Interesting. And which one was Gonzaga playing?
Pickleball, obviously.
Of course.
You didn't tell us who you think is winning between Baylor and Houston.
I'll take Baylor because Kyle's gonna say Houston.
I have Houston winning it all, so yeah.
Baylor.
Say Houston.
I know.
Obviously,
as well. I mean, they already beat the second best team in the tournament, Syracuse. So
Yeah.
if they can beat them, they can beat anybody.
Exactly.
Houston's road to the Final Four consisted of no team lower than a 10 seed,
No team higher than a 10 seed.
depending on how you look at it. Yeah.
Wait, yeah. Yeah, so they played all double-digit seeds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
that's
far,
far.
So are they even good?
Is that the first
they're
time?
great.
Ever?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
the first time ever, yeah.
They're great. The boy Giroux doesn't even have 2 hips at this point, but he's, still putting in that work.
Yeah.
I think we do have to talk about too the upset of the second round. What the hell happened, Oklahoma State? You have the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. He clawed you back after a second half deficit, stole an inbounds pass, hit a 3 in someone's face to cut the lead to 3, and then you went 5 possessions in a row without giving him the ball.
It was like
Ended up losing
watching
by double digits.
it was like watching the Pelicans and Zion at the end of games. Yeah, it was very frustrating.
Cade's going to be incredible to watch. Cade and Jalen Suggs are going to be so fun to watch in the NBA.
Cade Cunningham, Markelle Fultz, Jonathan Isaac. Let's go, baby. All right. Well, that was our NBA trade deadline reaction extravaganza 2021 with a little March Madness sprinkled in. Hope you guys enjoyed. Any final thoughts, boys?
Never.
Lewis Robert just scored on a pass ball and broke his what had to have been $250,000 chain on the run in. Just
What
shattered.
the fuck is he talking about?
Why would his chain have been that much money? No way he plays
you
with a
make-
$250,000 chain, right?
He has at least 4 of them on. Yeah, he
Well,
definitely.
you have that expensive ones, but you don't put them on to play, you know.
No, you put him on the play when you have that kind of money and that kind of
Are you talking
swag.
about poker?
No, that's Daniel Negreanu.
Oh my god, this has really gotten off the
I have
rails.
no semblance of what is happening in this conversation
We just had
anymore.
MLB draft last night.
And one of my players already got sent to the minor leagues the next day.
Oh, chain. You're probably going to play.
Seth just got it. Good. All right. Well, everyone
We're
have
talking
a
about money, so
safe and happy April Fool's Day because it have already happened when this comes out.
Happy Easter, though.
On the third day, he did rise.
On
So.
the third day, he did rise again. Who thought it'd ever make sense?